So I'm thinking, okay, I guess they won, they got what they wanted, it's over. Well, it starts up again. And what I initially thought it was going to be, but I was too afraid to say because I didn't want to look like a jerk, was I don't think this is about the honor code. I don't even think this is about gay people. I think this is about trying to make people abandon their covenants.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
All right.
We'll find a way to cover it.
Well, welcome to the program, The Last Dispensation. I'm your host, Troy Abels. And I want to start off by introducing you, Kwaku. You're a convert to the church. You were born in Cypress, Texas. You currently live in the Utah Valley, right? If I'm getting any of this wrong, just let me know. You were one of the first hosts of Saints Unscripted, used to be called Three Mormons. And that's a funny story, by the way, that he tells about that. Also, he has a podcast and YouTube channel called 16 Stones. Is that right?
Or Stone 16.
Stone 16, sorry.
Yeah.
Stone 16, brothers and sisters. And I think it's great. It's really good for the younger crowd too. He's an actor, writer, comedian. He did a series of videos entitled This Is the Show that was made possible by Fair Mormon, correct?
Yes,
and
correct.
He wouldn't call himself an apologist, but ends up finding himself as one at times. Also involved in a plethora of other projects, too many to name. And here he is, brothers and sisters, Kwaku.
Hello.
And this is prepaid Preacher Palmer up to above you, and he's got his own channel. And Kyle Jean, he's my trusty sidekick.
Awesome.
So
love it.
Before we get into anything, I know you're a busy person. How in the heck did you get into apologetics?
So I accidentally fell into it. It was when I was a part of Saints Unscripted. So that show originally started mostly to be a more LDS cultural show about what it's just like in LDS culture. And because there weren't that many church podcasts on YouTube, and that was only a couple of years ago. I mean, the members of the church on YouTube have gone up exponentially, but this was back when it was us, that Mormon girl, and then Ask Mormon Boy, and that was it. There was like nobody else. So we started doing it, and people
and Zelf on the Shelf.
I don't count them. Yeah, I don't. But yeah, so people were paying attention, and people really, started asking us hard questions. So we ended up having to go do research and find answers for these tough questions. So I never planned on it. I was never ever, the apologetic type. I still don't really think I am, but I sort of stumbled into it that way, and now I seem to cause a ruckus sometimes online, which is okay.
Right.
So that's really how it started, all accidentally. None of it was planned. I did not go into school wanting to study religion or theology or anything.
Right.
It's all just accidentally happened.
Well, you said before that you're not into academia that much.
I'm not.
That's not what you specialize in.
No, I mean, if I could go back, I'd probably get a minor in history if I could restart my undergrad over, because I love history, and that's academia. That's about as much as I like. But religious academia, I have a lot of beef with, a ton. And if you ask me about that, I could go off for hours. But I don't think when at least when it comes to saving souls and defending the church and talking about the gospel in a way that's positive to your heart, but also your mind and your intellect, I don't really think apologetics or academic apologetics, I don't think it meets the mark. I find it to be pretty lackluster, and I find that it oftentimes is about making the person who's writing or speaking look smart, as opposed to making sure that people in the room can walk away feeling edified in a way that they don't normally get it at an EFY or at a fireside. Right. So I just find that it's self-serving. So that's my beef. I know I'm looking at three apologists right now, so hope you don't get too upset.
We're truck drivers.
We're simple people. Hey, Kwaku, let me tell you something happened just to me today. Kind of funny. So I'll be honest, I've seen a couple of your videos, and you are so well spoken and so fun to listen to. But we had one of the missionaries we served with, young missionaries, actually teaching at the MTC now. He spent the weekend with us, and I happened to mention that I was going to be on an interview with you, and he just about came unglued. He's probably one of your biggest fans, and you're making a huge difference down in Utah County and throughout, because you're young, you're well spoken, you understand the gospel of Jesus Christ, and you have the Spirit with you, which is what I think is key. I watched the debate today just to kind of get to know you a little bit that you had with was he Baptist or Calvinist or whatever, that debate?
Oh,
You know who I'm talking about?
Pastor Aaron, was it the one at UVU?
Yeah, Pastor Aaron.
Yes.
Yeah, that was good.
You nailed it. You were awesome.
That was, to me, I felt too mean at that debate. That was like the meanest I ever had to be. It was just such an intense one, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wish it didn't have to be that way. I even wish we didn't have to debate other Christians, because I only would agree to those debates because I remember convert me would just be looking through YouTube and see so much anti stuff from a lot of other Christians.
Yeah.
It's like, well, someone, you kind of have to confront it. But I really wish it didn't have to be that way. I think there's better ways to actually have conversations with our brothers and sisters in different Christian churches. But man, they don't want to. they really just want to have a bit of a fight, you know?
They want to attack Joseph Smith, and that's unfortunate because we have more in common than we have differences. And if we focused on those things in common and then debate the differences, it makes it softer. But you did a great job. Good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Definitely. Hey, can you guys hear me? I've got kind of a delay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you great.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've got some internet issues right now, but so before we get started, I thought I would read Alma chapter 1 verse 19. And it says, "But it came to pass that whosoever did not belong to the church of God began to persecute those that did belong to the church of God, and had taken upon them the name of Christ. Yea, they did persecute them and afflict them with all manner of words." So we're talking about, like you mentioned before, the rise of Nehorism. And I think you mentioned Nahor for some very legitimate reasons, but didn't he carry on a form of open elitism? Anyone?
That's
Oh
yeah. I mean,
yeah. I mean, what was your reason for? I mean, for saying that it was a form of Nehorism? What's going on at BYU?
Right. So I've used the term Nehorism and not Korohorism is I think Korihor is the most popular Antichrist in the Book of Mormon, right? He's the one who's got the "I always knew there was a God," so everyone likes to go to that because it's got the most like compelling, beautiful language, right? But I don't think it's accurate to describe what's happening at BYU. Nehorism, this sort of taking the gospel and changing the doctrines, making it worldly is not even a good word. It's an incredibly manipulated version of the gospel. That's, I'm not saying all of BYU preaches, but a number of professors seem to preach it and seem to online engage with it in a friendly and positive manner. Right. And their students are looking at them, you know, and then a lot of students. And there's a level of it's presented in an elitist way of this is the new way the gospel is understood, and if you don't jive with it this way, you just don't understand. You're just small-minded. You're just one of those, you know, TBMs or whatever the term they want to use.
Right.
And so this issue is it's becoming pretty prominent and pretty big at BYU, and really just Gen Z and millennials in the Utah Valley and Salt Lake Valley, and I started talking about it a couple of years ago, and I when I would bring it up, I would look like a crazy person. I just look like this
Like
kook
a
who's like,
conspiracy
what they're
theorist.
doing to BYU. Exactly. And now I get to see, especially on Twitter, and I want to make a preface, Twitter is inherently a terrible app. Like it's meant to be a bad app, right? There's so much negativity, and everybody wishes they could speak better and more polite on Twitter. I certainly wish I could. Believe me, I've
You're
had
young,
blunders
man.
on
You've got
YouTube,
plenty of time to
but
fix that. Don't worry about it.
right. But I started speaking about this a while ago, speaking about BYU professors who are, you know, are planting doubts by saying things like the Book of Mormon is true in the way you apply it to your life, which I agree with, but then not saying it's true, period. Right?
Right.
These tribes actually existed. These wars actually happened. Nephi was a real person. Jesus Christ is the savior. There seems to be, it's this small perversion, but it's done in a way that makes people feel good. It's done in a way to say, oh, you have an issue with, okay, here's an example. As opposed to standing up for the gospel and the history of the church and the prophets, what they'll do is they'll capitulate, and they'll capitulate to an anti-Mormon talking point, and then try to make you focus on something else. So if you say, it's totally, I understand that you feel very uncomfortable with the fact that, Brigham Young was a bad prophet, but think about how much God loves you. And because he loves you, you have a place here. And what that's going to do is people are going to go, I do have a place here. But they get to walk away thinking, yeah, after Joseph Smith, it's just was straight downhill. And what that is, it's a form of spiritual manipulation, because what you end up doing is you're telling the people who are in oftentimes very vulnerable situations, hey, yeah, no, the anti-Mormons are right about this. Just focus on how you feel. Well, that's only going to last you so long. So what these people are doing, these Nehors, what they're doing is they're as opposed to just coming at you with the CES letter or something like that to try to make you leave the church, they do it in a slow way. It really, the way literal political elitists like.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There's not much difference between cultural Marxism and what's going on other campuses. This seems to be a politically motivated rhetoric familiar to all colleges, but it's tailored to BYU because of the gospel.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Well, I think Utah in generally, I'm going to use I'm going to use the term Mormonism here because it's socio-political, right? Utah Mormonism versus anti-Mormonism is really just traditionalism versus leftism. That's really it is. It's every state has the same battle, but ours has the church sprinkled onto it. So if you go to any other state where we're not dominating the population, if you want to have a conversation about race relations in BLM, it's just going to be about race relations in BLM. But in Utah, it's about priesthood ban and Brigham Young, and then race relations and so Utah it's the same issues as everyone else, but it's around the gospel. And so what's happening is this is, again, I am a Zoomer, all right? I've not been alive for that long, but just from what I get to see and the people I get to speak with, what I'm seeing is somewhere in the 1990s, people who worked for the church at the church office building, a lot of church authors and professors started going the route that Protestantism went, of certain doctrines might make people uncomfortable, or certain things might make people uncomfortable. So let's just actually, can you guys still hear me? I think you guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's just actually not talk about anything really deep, anything mystical, anything quote unquote weird. And let's sound more academic. Let's be more respectable to the, in the eyes of academics and especially secular academics. And so what that did was we went from hardcore Spencer W. Kimball's to Ezra Taft Benson's to just very Mormonism light.
Yeah.
And the issue with that is it's a disaster to uphold, because what happens when you want to know about polygamy in church history? What happens when you want to know about an obscure quote? It's a form of manipulation to get people on board to say, hey, you are with us to help change the culture to be better, because nobody's going to disagree with that. But now it's turning into, you must change your religion to be better. And what that suggests is you must renounce your covenants, and you must walk away from what you know about God, about Jesus Christ, about the prophet, about what you're supposed to become, and about who you are. So I give an example.
That's all?
Yeah, that's all.
Just that little
the small thing,
okay.
Betraying the Lord,
Whatever.
Worked out well for Judas, right? So,
well, at least you get a lot of money as soon as you graduate.
And you don't even. That's the worst part. They just, they literally, they quite literally, like Judas, they're willing to betray the Lord for $30. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so sad. So, but one example of that is a couple years ago, protesting the honor code at BYU. I have some important insight there, because when it was first happening, a good friend of mine, we hosted a podcast together, and we were in leadership for BYU Democrats together. Yeah, that's how long ago it was. And the planning meeting for the first honor code protest was done at like 9:30 p.m. at UVU. It wasn't even done at BYU. And in the room, you had Grant Frazier, you had Keaton Hill, you had a lot of these people, and some were a little way more radical than others, but all talking about, hey, BYU is bad, and we need to change the doctrine of the church starting at BYU. That was literally a planning meeting. And I felt like when the apostate apostles like brought Brigham Young in, and they're like, we're going to plan against Joseph, and he was like, you go against Joseph Smith, like you were cutting yourself off from. I feel like me and Keaton kind of felt like Brigham Young in this situation, going, what on earth is happening? So the beginning of this new wave we're seeing at BYU, I mean, it's been happening for a while, but it's very overt. It's not hiding anymore, right? This was the beginning of that new overt movement led by professors and Gen Z students. Started literally in a dark room in a tucked away place at UVU at 10 o'clock at night. So it goes on, and you have all these students who are supportive, because they're saying, it's ridiculous that if a normal student gets drunk and has sex, they get kicked out, but if an athlete does it, it's totally fine. And it's like, that is a level of hypocrisy that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? That's absolutely wrong. And I am not gonna, be like, no, yeah, like give the athletes a pass. In fact, on my honor code file, because you can go request your file, mine had not an athlete written on it. Why should that matter? But it had not an athlete written on it. So there was actually something going on, right? So, but then the actual protest.
Did it say underneath it, but he's black, so be careful?
Right. Well, here's the issue. I look at this guy he's graduated since, but he ran track for BYU, and he looked just like me. Like, I would literally be on campus and people would call his name at me. So part of me's wondering if it actually if they actually did look at both the pictures and confuse it. I look just like the guy. He's a little more handsome, and he's married, so he won. But so part of wonders that. But I think it's generally athletes got to pass, normal students didn't. So what happens is the protest is taking place, and the school approves the protest because they're making so much noise. BYU says, fine, do your protest. And they do it right in front of the law building. And there's a lot of people there, but most of the people at the protest are not BYU students. They're from out of the school and or alumni. And we realized it quickly became an LGBT protest. It became a protest so BYU can allow gay dating. That's really what it turned into. Mm-hmm. And a lot of students, and I'm watching it all, and I go to the stairs, and on the stairs at the Wilk, there's a group of a bunch of just Islander students sitting down. And I was like, what do you guys think about this? And
bunch of crazy white people.
That's literally what they're saying. He literally said, why don't we leave the church? He said,
Yeah.
And so the whole message of, oh, you need to be inclusive. These are islanders in very patriarchal religious culture. They don't bend to Marxism. They just don't care, right? This is, why don't they leave the church? Like, what are you here for if you don't like the church? And then a lot of other students actually felt that they were duped, because if you came out and just said, we're going to do a protest to let gay students date at BYU, I think you would have had people who supported go, all right, and people who don't go, I don't support that, not my jam, I'm just gonna, let you do your thing. But instead, that's really what it was. But at first, for weeks, it was pretending to be something else. And because it was pretending to be something else, students were upset. The reality is, I've been in the BYU performing arts building where they have the art classes. You can date and be gay at BYU. It happens all the time.
Right.
People will upload pictures on Instagram. I have a friend, she's a lesbian, she has a girlfriend. They upload pictures on Instagram. They're both still at BYU. They don't care. Nobody cared. Like, that was the thing. Nobody. I mean, you had a couple
Nobody's
of people
being
really
persecuted.
No one was. It just was not happening. And again, I'll say that as a straight person, I didn't see it. I'm sure there are some other horror stories. But
Right.
like, I can say I see people posting openly on their social media, and they're totally fine. So it was, we never really got the actual stats. The movement was coming out with all the stats of this, how many students were expelled because of, having an issue with the law of chastity or XYZ. But people were asking, okay, how many students have been kicked out for openly dating someone of the same sex? And no one ever got answers. And so it made me go, is anyone really getting kicked out? Because you seem to have stats for everything, but this you don't have stats for. So it turned out to be an LGBT protest. Now, fast forward, there's another protest, and this one is openly exactly what it wants to be. That same year, the BYU Office of Student Inclusion held an LGBT Christmas party. So it was sponsored by the school, in which it was LGBT students came together, had a Christmas party. I wasn't there, but I know about, people like a dating mixer. Some people said it was just for them to, have a support group. But the reality is, at this point, the school literally funded a gay dating party. Is it really that oppressive? Like, is the school really trying, hunt down gay students? They gave
They're
you a Christmas
reaching
party.
across the aisle.
So I'm going, well, you guys have, like, I feel like it's pretty inclusive at this point. You can go to the GSB, and professors' doors will have rainbow flags on them, right? I mean, it's social sciences, so it leans more left, right? But so I'm thinking, okay, I guess they won, they got what they wanted, it's over. Well, it starts up again. And what I initially thought it was going to be, but I was too afraid to say because I didn't want to look like a jerk, was, I don't think this is about the honor code. I don't even think this is about gay people. I think this is about trying to make people abandon their covenants.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
Honor code and gay people were both used as pawns in their greater scheme.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if you think all Satan really wants is for Kyle and Jimmy, the gay couple, to just go to IKEA and like paint furniture and stuff, you know what I'm saying? That's not it. He wants something else. And you have all these pawns being used in the scheme. So it became, the church is oppressive. Change needs to start at BYU, and we need to change the doctrine. And some people even suggested changing scriptures.